Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple, book by book, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Amos, the book of Amos, the prophecy of Amos, chapter 9. I want to kind of reemphasize sort of the pattern of prophecies, how the writings of the prophets go. We are not going in chronological order as they are arranged in our Bibles. I am doing it more by the date, and the reason why is because the flavor of the prophecy, the take. So, it would be like if you can imagine speaking about terrorism before 9/11 and then versus after 9/11. There's a different way we relate and talk. But it's kind of amazing if you go back and look at different newscasts or even movies. There's a difference, in other words. And what we are seeing is God, when we talk about the writings of the prophet themselves, so this section, the writings of the prophet, it is God beginning his prophetic message, his warnings to Israel to, number one, turn from their sins, which they will not obey. And then it is his warning of the judgments because they will not turn from their sins. Which, from Amos' perspective, let me bring up my chart so we can look at a timeline here to so Amos, if you think about this timeline with Amos, which is 766 BC. So almost like 160 years, 170 years, when we come to the Babylonian destruction, okay, which is way down here, 586, okay. Now, from Amos' perspective, let's go back and let me see something here. So, the Amos is primarily speaking to the this is the Northern Kingdom's chart, right? So you got the Kingdom of Judah, which all the way goes to Zedekiah when Babylon invades Israel, and then you have Assyria that invades the northern kingdoms. Hosea is the last king. So when you look at a timeline of that, okay, so here is where this king right here, Hosea, right? You see, he's the last king before Assyria. Let me go back and show you a picture. Again, I want us to keep this in our minds so we kind of get the idea of what is being said, why it's being said. So you see over to the right, Hosea here, and so Hosea, and so from this time on, about Hezekiah's time, right, a little after Hezekiah, the northern kingdom is captured. They're exiled out of the city. So that picks up. That's why I said it picks us right around here. Where you at? Amos, right? So Amos, then you have about 766 BC. So you come down to Hosea to about. So as far as Amos is concerned, look at the timeline here. just about 11 years, 12 years, right, before they are the northern kingdoms. That's important to understand. The northern kingdoms is wiped out. Okay, so let's get to it. So Amos prophesies primarily to the northern kingdoms, as we can see here by a chart, the kings of Israel, then the kings of Judah. Okay, so the kings of Israel, right? So this is Hosea, and this is where they are going to their judgment. Now, from Amos, again, it's only about 11 years. All right, so chapter 9, let's get into it. Chapter 9. So he says, I saw the Lord standing beside the altar, and he said, strike the capitals of the pillars, so that the thresholds shake. Knock them down on the heads of all the people. Then I will kill the rest of them with the sword. None of those who flee will get away. None of the fugitives will escape. So again, keep this in mind. He is prophesying against the northern kingdoms, which from this perspective is just a short period of time, just 11 years. And they're going to be completely wiped out. Then about another 100 years or so, Judah, the king of Judah, right, the southern kingdom will be completely wiped out by Nebuchadnezzar. In fact, Nebuchadnezzar is going to rule over all of them. Okay, but more of that when we get to that time. Verse 2 says, if they dig down to Sheol, from there my hand will take them. If they climb up to heaven, from there I will bring them down. If they hide themselves on the top of Carmel, from there I will track them down and seize them. If they conceal themselves from my sight on the sea floor, from there I will command the sea serpents to bite them. And if they are driven by their enemies into the captivities, from there I will command the sword to kill them. I will fix my eyes on them for harm and not for good. So keep in mind that this is what it is taking to bring God to this judgment. So keep that in mind. When you actually see it, yeah, it is hard to see. But keep in mind how they got there. Keep in mind, that they deserve this, even though it is hard to see the cruelty that will befall them. Verse 5, the Lord, the God of hosts, he touches the earth, it melts, and all who dwells in it mourns. All of it rises like the Nile and subsides like the Nile of Egypt. He builds his upper chambers in the heavens and lay the foundation of his vault on the earth. He summoned the waters of the sea, pours them out on the face of the earth. Yahweh is his name. Israelites, are you not like the Cushites to me? This is the declaration. This is the Lord's declaration. Did I bring Israel from the land of Egypt, Philistines from Caphadar, and the Arameans from Ker? Now I'm going to stop and go back. Notice he said this is like the Cushites. The Cushites, which the land of Cush comprises a lot of the pagan kingdoms. I say that because God is not making a racial issue here. There are some that will look at the Cushites and make it about race or dark-skinned people. And so while the Cushites certainly could have been around the regions where there were a lot of dark-skinned people, that's not what God is emphasizing there. All right, so the Cushites were very pagan, ungodly people. By the way, keep this in mind, and we go back to Numbers. Moses married a Cushite. And again, they wasn't upset because he married a dark-skinned person. They were mad because their idea was you couldn't find an Israelite to marry. All right. Verse 8 says, "Look, the eyes of the Lord God are on the sinful kingdom, and I will destroy it from the face of the earth." So again, notice sinful kingdom is the key here. He says, "However, I will not totally destroy the house of Jacob. This is the Lord's declaration. For I am about to give the command, and I will shake the house of Israel among all nations, as one shakes a sieve. But not a pebble will fall to the ground. All the sinners among my people who say disaster will never overtake us, never overtake or confront us, will die by the sword." So again, the people who are not heeding God's judgment or declaration of judgment to come. "In that day, I will restore the fallen booth of David." Now, as I said, the prophecies always talks about God's judgment, God's warning of the judgment to come, then God's judgment, and then God's restoration for Israel. And so you have what's in that a near and far prophecy. This is the near that we're talking about, and then the far would be the ultimate establishing of Israel. Now, let's be clear. God is the one that's going to do this. It's not any politics that we do today. So the Abraham Accords, the fact that Israel came a nation in 1947, that is not the fulfillment of prophecy. Because again, notice what God will say will happen when he restores Israel. So verse 11, in that day, right? So in that day is how we can always measure the day by what happens. So in 1947, this didn't happen. The Abraham Accords didn't happen, didn't establish this. So verse 11, in that day I will restore the fallen booth of David. I will repair its gaps, restore its ruins, and rebuild it as in the days of old, so that they may possess the remnant of Edom and all nations that are called by my name. He will do this. I'm sorry. All that are called by my name. I don't know why this is over here like this. Let me just get over here. Did I miss something too? All right, no. All right. So he said, he would, all that are called by my name. This is the Lord's declarations. And then he said, he will do this. So again, all of these prophecies, by the way, God will do this. Man is not going to do this. Religion is not going to do this. Denomination is not going to do this. God is going to do it. So all these, when people look at certain political things that happen in the news and say, oh my God, like I say, 1947, Israel became a nation. It's not a fulfillment of the nation, not a fulfillment of prophecy. Verse 13, hear this, the days are coming. This is the Lord's declarations. When the plowman would overtake the reaper, and the one who treads grapes with the sower of the seeds, the mountains will drip with sweet wine, and all the hills will flow with it. Then he says, I will restore the fortunes of my people, Israel. So again, I want to emphasize the fact that God is the one who said he will accomplish this. So there's nothing. When you get into arguments or even debates about prophecy, and this is kind of a mistake that some people make, okay, and trying to prove the existence of God, trying to prove prophecy, and it is always a mistake because notice here, it is God the one who says he was going to do that. It is so you never should get into an argument or debate over this because first and foremost, you declare that here's what the Bible declares. All right, you reject it, fine. The next step for that is God is going to demonstrate that. If you were talking to an atheist, atheists say, well, we don't believe in the existence of God. Fine. Then at this point, it takes God. I've even had people say, well, why don't God just answer my prayer? I actually have a friend who would say this, that, All I would ask if God would just answer, just answer one prayer, well, and it'd be something like, heal heal. Well, for one, I think her, she would more so. Her son had an artistic son, um, and another guy used to, and you'll find this kind of thought among people, and they would say that if God just answered this one prayer, why doesn't God appear in the sky and reveal himself? You wouldn't believe anyway. Let me finish this out. I'm going to kind of go back and finish kind of my commentary on this. He says, verse 14, I will restore the fortunes of my people Israel. They will rebuild and occupy ruined cities. So all this thing about the Palatine, they won't have to worry about that when God restores Israel. Plant vineyards and drink their wines, make gardens and eat their produce. Now, notice, he says, they will rebuild and occupy the ruined cities. Why? By God's hands. Now, let me just say this. The people who occupy the land of Israel today, who are called themselves Israelites today, themselves have to worry about the judgment that had them in that situation. In other words, Israelites today reject God. If you look at the nation of Israel today, they reject the God, the God of their ancestors, right? The God of Abraham. The nation of Israel is more liberal than America. So you have a religious faction, and in that religious faction, the Orthodox Jews are not following the Old Testament. So they're, in a sense, they're in the same boat here. So now, when we talk about policies, okay, foreign policies with respect to Israel, okay, this is funny because Israel fits these prophecies here. Verse 14 again, I will restore my fortunes of my people Israel, and they will build and occupy the ruined cities, plant their vineyards and drink their wine, make gardens and eat their produce. And I will plant them on their land. Notice, God will plant them on their land, and they will never again be uprooted from the land that I've given them. Yahweh, your God, has spoken. So the ultimate fulfillment of this is who God, Yahweh, is going to fulfill this. Okay. All right, guys. That will do it for Amos. Next time we're going to get into Jonah, and Jonah is a fascinating book. It is. It's one of my favorite books. I'll give you a little highlight here. Because Jonah, I know that I was always kind of led to believe about Jonah that he was fleeing from God because he didn't want to preach, because he was afraid to preach. And one of the most astounding things about Jonah is that Jonah had one of the greatest revivals, true revivals, ever. One of the true revivals ever. And the reason Jonah fled, where most evangelists would have been, oh my God, 120,000 people. Jonah fled because of that very reason. Because his revival brought about 120,000 people repenting. And he did not want them to repent. Amazing. All right, guys, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you ever thought a comment, add it to the comments section below. All comments are welcome. Till next time, I'll see you in the book of Jonah, the prophecy of Jonah.